Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here with us for the July Health Innovation Community Partnership meeting. Let's go ahead and get started. We have a series of exciting presentations for you today, and I'm sure you'll really enjoy the time with our speakers. We have extra time set aside for discussion today, so we look forward to a very rich conversation. As we always do, please do mute yourself unless you are speaking. That will keep the chatter in the background to a minimum. Also, please take advantage of all of the tools on your Zoom toolbar located at the bottom of our screen. In particular, we ask everyone to select the language of their choice, either English or Spanish, so that they can participate fluently and hear all of the commentary that happens during the meeting. If you're interested in if you're interested in being called upon during the question and answer period, please go ahead and raise your hand at the appropriate time. And you're always invited to use the chat where you can leave comments and questions that we'll reference during the course of the meeting. We will leave as much time as possible for Q&A, so please always be sure to raise that hand or put your comment in the chat so we can reference back, and we will call upon you at the appropriate time. To get started, I'm going to go ahead and read our guiding principles that the Health Innovation Community Partnership membership mutually agreed upon when we started this project back in 2017. All participants agree to basic principles prioritizing equity, community resilience, and health in all programs and projects. All participants agree to approach issues with an open mind, be willing to engage in dialogue, and commit to thinking boldly about solutions. Participants will state views and ask genuine questions. Participants will seek to avoid monologues and arguments, move to conversations where participants are curious and seek to understand various points of view. Participants will explain reasoning and intent, share how we reached our conclusions so that others can understand our divergent reasoning. Participants will attack the problem and not the person, organization, or institution. Participants will define key terms so that we can attain a shared understanding. Participants will share all relevant information. Participants will always arrive prepared for the meeting. During meetings, only one person speaks at a time. We will not engage in sidebar conversations. Participants will work to develop a comprehensive set of common solutions. Participants will work to develop a comprehensive common set of information with which to solve problems and make decisions. Participants will jointly design next steps. Thank you, everyone. So let's look at what is in store for us today at the July Health Innovation Community Partnership meeting. We'll start, as always, with our welcome and overview and guiding principles. Mission accomplished, check that off the agenda. We'll move next into our LAC USC Medical Center update. Then we will have a lovely presentation on tenants' rights and protections. And then we'll move into the bulk of our meeting. We'll be talking about workforce and economic recovery in LA County. And last, we'll have time for partner conversations and announcements. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. And I invite Jorge Orozco and Edgar Silis to join us with some updates about the Medical Center campus.
Hi, let's see.
Hey, Jorge.
Hi, good morning. It really is a pleasure to be here and to provide some updates. I'll start with the Medical Center. We, for the last couple of weeks, have stopped seeing a decline in cases and started seeing a slight increase in cases. And as you've all probably heard on the news, the Delta variant is the prominent source of that. But you all should know that this is largely a disease now of the unvaccinated. All of the cases that have come into our hospital have been of individuals who have been partially vaccinated or not vaccinated at all. We continue to encourage all of our staff and all of our community to get vaccinated. We're not too worried about the similar surge as we did back in January and December, largely because a large portion of our population has been vaccinated or has already been infected with the coronavirus. So if you combine those two, we have probably close to 80%. But really those individuals who have not been vaccinated still remain at risk. Couple of other things, exciting things that are happening on our campus. One is there is an installation happening as we speak of the coerced sterilization project artwork. As you recall, several years ago, Supervisor Solis's office issued a formal apology, and as part of that apology, included a commemorative plaque on our campus. So we went above and beyond just the plaque and commissioned an amazing artist to do an artwork in collaboration with our community. And I don't know, Heather, can you show individuals what this work is going to look like? So this is on the plaza above the main plaza, sort of at the level of the OPD building. And what you're seeing here is a cutout of Corten steel that will be placed above lighting. So if you go to the next slide, at nighttime, it will be absolutely spectacular. In addition, there will be quotes. I'm not sure if these are the actual quotes, but there will be quotes from the women who were the victims of this coerced sterilization. And there will be a commemorative plaque placed. We are planning a great event with the community in the next several months. So you all will receive an invitation, so look out for that. This piece of art will grace our campus, but also will be a reminder for us never to repeat these kinds of actions, which are happening in our country and in other parts of the world. The other exciting project is the elevator project. And so I'll turn this over to Edgar Solis, our Chief Operations Officer, to give us a brief overview of what.
Good morning, yes. So yes, we're announcing that work will soon start on building 2 elevators, replacing the stairs located on our courtyard. So it's right next to that art installation that Jorge presented. Right next to that, there's some stairs that lead up to the OPD building, our outpatient building, which is elevated in comparison to the level where we have our hospital entrance. And the elevators will provide ease of access to our patients and visitors who use mobility aids or who use wheelchair, where it may be difficult to climb the stairs to get to our patient department. As you see on the screen is a rendering of what those elevators will look like. These elevators were slated to start construction in the next 2 weeks. And we anticipate the project to take about 10 months. So we're looking at a date about May of 2022 when we will start using the elevators.
We need to sweep outside to get some clothes on.
We are working with our medical center partners. Our utmost thing our most priority is the safety of our patients, our visitors, and our staff. And to minimize the impact the construction will have to our operations, to our access of our buildings, and to our patients that are in the hospital. So we've been working with our safety officer, our infection control team, our clinical partners, nurses, physicians, to develop a plan and really put every mitigating intervention to ensure that we have the least impact to our care and our operations. So you might see a fence going up around the construction site, and we will soon have signage on the new modified access to the outpatient department. So we thank you for for bearing with the construction, and please pardon our dust and the way it looks, but we're looking forward to May to have this beautiful new building with the elevators. Thank you.
At this point, I'll open it up to any questions that anyone might have.
Does anyone have questions or comments for Jorge or Edgar about either the spike in COVID cases at the hospital or these two fantastic projects that are taking place in the courtyard?
Heather, I have a question. It's Monica. So Jorge, so if somebody had COVID already, they can't get it again?
The likelihood of getting it again is very, 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 very low. They're not sure how long the immunity lasts after getting COVID, but people who have had COVID have immunity to COVID. So that's likely to wane, and they're still recommending that people get vaccinated even though they've had COVID, so that immunity will last longer.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jorge, there's been a few questions from our CHW pool related to, because there's been so much attention to the Delta variant. So whether there's any changes to like the onset of when you have symptoms, when you should get tested, right? Because the concern, as you said, because of the unvaccinated being the most vulnerable, the concern is now more children. And so parents who are vaccinated could transmit it to their children. Anything that you guys have been hearing that might be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I could just reflect what our medical director, Brad Spelberg, often says, that, don't believe the hype, don't read the news, don't listen to the news. I mean, these variants are coming up, and there will continue to be variants because these are sort of natural mutations of viruses. And, I think the same principles apply. Get vaccinated. Everyone around you get vaccinated. And so if you're a parent and you're vaccinated and your kids are not vaccinated, the likelihood that they will be infected is very, very low. It's also lower for children than adults in terms of being exposed and getting COVID-19. So that's really the main push. If you're in enclosed spaces with a lot of people, wear a mask. At the hospital, we continue to wear masks, although we've eliminated the social distancing requirement in patient care areas and in waiting rooms. We're still requiring everyone to wear a mask on our campus. So I think just follow the basic principles and we'll be okay.
We have a raised hand from Alex Villalobos.
Hi, good morning, Jorge.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. So 2 quick questions. With these new strains, with these new variants, is there more severity of the symptoms? Are the symptoms more severe? Are the problems that people are experiencing much worse? And second question is there any signs that it's in one community much worse than any other?
Yeah, in terms of severity, there are no sort of scientific studies that are showing that it's more severe than other strains. They have shown that the vaccinations are effective against these new variants. But I think what is worrisome is the rate of spread within communities of these variants. It sort of suggests that they are more infectious. So they're more transmissible. And then Alex, you had a second question about, remind me.
Of the communities that are
the communities that are hit, and it's, yeah, they've shown that communities that have a lower vaccination rate are exposed more to these more infectious variants. So
That tracks.
I think our Latino and African American communities, younger populations that have lower vaccination rates, certainly are more at risk. Other parts of the country, like Missouri, where they didn't have big outbreaks like LA did, and so and have low vaccination rates, certainly are showing higher levels of hospitalizations. So those are really the communities more at risk.
Thank you.
Jorge, Monica had an additional question. She wanted to know if we have any idea of when children will be able to get the vaccine.
Yeah, we're hopeful that'll happen in early fall. You know, I think parents certainly are concerned about having their kids go back to school. You know, we're hoping. I don't really have a sense of the process that is going through. The makers of the vaccines are currently testing it in younger children. I think, you know, as soon as they have their data and be able to present that, and there should be an approval. So hopefully in the fall.
Any final questions for Jorge? Oh, I think we have a hand from Juana.
Yo lo que quiero decirle a Jorge es muchas gracias por la oportunidad que ha dado para que se vacunen los jóvenes. Especialmente yo estoy muy agradecida porque mi hija se vacunó y ya nos sentimos más seguras. Entonces agradezco infinitamente a todo el equipo por todo lo que están haciendo y siempre voy a decirles gracias.
Muchas gracias, Juana. Mucho placer.
And on that note, I think we thank you all. We all thank you, Jorge and company, for the wonderful work that you do at the hospital and for answering our questions and keeping us up to date and informed with the real deal every the first Friday, or in this case, the second Friday of every month. And very exciting to look forward to the elevator project and the access that it will provide and the beautiful artwork and art space that is carved out for the memorial. All right. With that, we will move on to our next presentation today. I'm delighted to welcome Pam and Katie to talk with us about tenant rights and protections. Pamela Augustin from Eastside Leads and Katie McEwen from Public Counsel. Please take it away, ladies.
Thank you, Heather, and good morning, partners. So we're back. As you know, the state and the county have been continuously updating tenant protections throughout, over the year of pandemic that we're all under. So today we bring you information about the latest updates. And part of the information that we share with you is also because we are part of the Stay Housed LA County program, collectively as Eastside Leads. And Katie McEwen, my fellow coalition partner with Public Counsel, will be sharing with you information from the state, so the updates from the state, and I will be sharing some of the updates from the county side. Next slide, please, Heather. So again, we're going to cover the state and county emergency COVID-19 protections. We will not go in detail into the LA City. Just a reminder, LA City also has their own protections. So if that applies to you, if you have questions, we're happy to answer those during the Q&A section. And we'll also share some information about the updates on the rental assistance program, which LA County has opted into the state rental assistance program. Next slide. But first of all, just a reminder, what is Stay Housed LA? It is a collaboration between the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs, Liberty Hill Foundation, and over 20 legal aid organizations and community-based organizations, nonprofits, we work together to do education and outreach to tenants in LA County to inform them of their rights, specifically, and also connect them to legal support should they be facing an eviction, which again, evictions have happened throughout the pandemic and they continue to happen. And so if you have a base of members, you interact with community, I highly recommend you to go to stayhousela.org on your phone or on your desktop, and you can support members by either signing them up for a workshop, hence the Know Your Rights section, get legal help if they've already received a notice from the court, or find a workshop with other partners. It doesn't have to be with Eastside Leads, but of course, we're happy to support. Next slide. And so what are emergency tenant protections at the state level? I'm going to pass it now to Katie.
Thanks, Pamela. So hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Katie McEwen. I'm a staff attorney at Public Counsel. For those of you who don't know me, I work with Greg Bonet, but he is out on parental leave. So I am stepping in for him at these meetings for the next few months. So I'm going to do a very high level overview of the various emergency tenant protections that are in place right now. If you have been paying attention or have been attending these meetings over the past several months, many of this will probably sound familiar because a lot has not changed except for the extension of how long the protections are in place. But I will go through them as a refresher. So next slide, please. So what are the COVID-19 emergency eviction laws that are in place right now? At the state level, we now have our third bill. We had AB 3088, SB 91, and now AB 832. So I'm gonna, in the next few slides, I'm going to walk through what AB 832 does, but it generally just extends what was in place with SB 91. LA County also just voted to extend their own emergency protections at the county level. They did that a couple weeks ago, and those will now be in place until the end of September. And Pamela is going to go into that more later in the presentation. And then just as a reminder, approximately 40 different cities throughout the county out of 88 have their own emergency protections on the books as well. And so if your city has protections in place, you should definitely talk to an organizer, go to a workshop, or talk to a lawyer who can talk to you a little bit about the interactions between the state law, the county law, and your local ordinance, because there are many protections that you may be able to access based on your specific situation. And then finally, just want to highlight that the federal government, the Center for Disease Control, has extended their eviction moratorium or eviction protection order until the end of this month. I'll say personally, I don't believe that it will be extended past that, given many of the legal challenges that have been raised to it. But the federal government is thinking and talking about other ways that it can support renters who are struggling right now due to the effects of the pandemic. Next slide, please. Okay, so just again, as a reminder, I even caught myself doing it using the word moratorium. And we want to be very clear that there is no eviction moratorium, despite all of the conversations using that term in the media and even by local elected officials. Right now, nothing stops a landlord from issuing a tenant a notice to pay rent or quit. It does look a little different right now than usual because it's supposed to be a 15-day notice to pay rent or quit, as opposed to a normal 3-day notice to pay rent or quit. Your landlord is also supposed to provide kind of additional information when they hand over a notice to pay rent or quit. But the bottom line is that they are not barred from actually giving a tenant a notice to pay rent or quit if the tenant is late on the rent. Also, nothing actually stops a landlord from moving forward and filing an eviction in a court of law. They are required to do that in order to process an eviction. Again, there is no such thing as a self-help eviction. A court always needs to be involved, but nothing stops a landlord from actually going into the courthouse and filing for that eviction. So just as a reminder, if you or anybody you know receive paperwork from the court, they must answer that paperwork within 5 working days. Again, tenants right now have so many different rights and options to contest any type of eviction that is filed, but you actually have to do that in court. Otherwise, the court can just process that eviction. It's called a default judgment, and a sheriff's office can then come and lock tenants out of their homes. So again, this is a good plug. If you know somebody or receive paperwork from the court, please go to stayhousedla.org to learn about your rights and access legal representation. So next slide, please. Okay, so now moving into AB 832. So again, this is the 3rd bill that the state legislature has passed to provide emergency eviction protections to tenants who have not been able to pay the rent. And so it's very important that you all understand that 832, along with the other 2 bills, really focus on non-payment issues, on situations where the tenant is unable, has been unable to pay the rent. It does not really deal with any other reason that a landlord may try to evict a tenant. So if you owe rent under these bills, it depends on what months of rent we're talking about. So for somebody who did not pay rent before March 2020, really before the pandemic hit, there really are no protections. Your eviction case may still be stuck in the courts because the courts were significantly slowed down, but there really are no protections from that being processed as the courts reopen and pick up speed. However, if you have missed rent between March 2020 and August 2020, all you have to do is to provide your landlord a declaration of financial distress saying that you can't pay rent due to COVID. If your landlord hands you a 15-day notice to pay rent or quit, they are supposed to provide you a blank declaration that you can sign and return to them. If they haven't, you can go to stayhousedla.org to download a blank declaration to sign. You return that to your landlord, and then you cannot be evicted ever for any missed rent from March 2020 to August 2020. You still owe that rent, and your landlord can still try to collect that through the court system, but you cannot lose your housing because of it. So now from September 1st, 2020 to September 30th, 2021, so this past, so a full year, it's a little different now. You still need to provide your landlord that declaration. And then you need to be able to pay 25% of the rent that came due during those months by September 30th, 2021. So for those who have been paying really close attention under SB 91, this was the same situation, except that deadline was June 30th. So AB 832 has extended that for 3 months. So tenants now can wait until September 30th to pay at least 25% of their rent if they're struggling to put together funds. And a landlord cannot file a non-payment eviction case until October 1st. So again, how this works out on the ground is that your landlord hands you a 15-day notice to pay rent or quit if, say, you weren't able to pay your June rent. You need to return that declaration saying that you have financial distress within the 15-day notice period. You return that declaration, and then you have until September 30th to pay at least 25% of the rent that came due in June or any other month where you did not pay, more than 25%. So that is the kind of different situations. I find it really helpful to kind of just go month by month and figure out where exactly you are in the scheme that has been set up by the state. So next slide, please. And then there are a few other things in here in AB 832 that provide various protections to tenants. So first, again, your landlord can still sue you in court to collect any unpaid rent that you may not have paid, but those can't be the reason to lose your housing. And those cases cannot start moving forward in the court system until November 1st. Second, there is state rental relief. I haven't even mentioned that really yet. Pamela is going to talk a little bit more about it, but there is billions of dollars available in the state of California for tenants who are low income. And that money can be applied for and will cover 100% of any back rent that came due starting April 2020. And hopefully some of that money can also be used to pay forward rent for those who need help still as time goes on. Ari, I'm seeing your question in the chat. Yes, does this mean I can hold back 75% of rent starting now through September? Technically, you actually don't have to pay any rent start from now through September, as long as you pay 25% of the rent that is due by September 30th. We encourage folks, if they are able to pay the 25% rent now, that they do so, but to be thoughtful about not cutting back on essentials like groceries, medicine, things like that. But yes, RA folks can really actually hold back 100% of their rent until the end of September, as long as they pay that 25% by then, and then that will save them from ever being evicted for that late rent. And then this is new under AB 832 from October 1st through March 31st. An eviction in the court cannot actually move forward unless the landlord affirmatively demonstrates that they actually have applied for the state rental assistance. In LA County, it is generally going to be through the state program. So I'm saying state rental assistance. So kind of walk through this timeline with me. Folks are supposed to be paying at least 25% of their rent come September 30th. Starting October 1st, though, that 25% kind of protection ends. So starting October 1st, moving forward through the end of March, a landlord can issue a 3-day notice to pay rent or quit if a tenant has missed rent starting October 1st. However, at that point, a landlord has to say, court, I've actually gone through the state system to try to get rental assistance to pay off, whether that's rent moving forward or maybe my tenant didn't pay that 25% and the back rent from September 1st, 2020 to September 2021. Then the court says, okay, I understand your tenant hasn't fulfilled their obligations when it comes to the rent, but there is money that's available out there to actually pay that rent. You need to show me that you have taken those steps to access that money before you can then move forward with a case to evict your tenant from the unit. So this puts a lot of burden on the court system to make sure that that's happening. It also requires both the landlord and the tenant to really go through this rental assistance program before the eviction can move forward. And so again, that last bullet point is talking about there needs to be a mechanism created by the court system, created by the different rental assistance programs to allow tenants, landlords, and the court system to check to make sure that applications have been filed or not been filed, approved, denied, etc. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, please. Okay, and then just real quick, this is a quick step-by-step diagram of how you can access assistance through Stay Housed LA and what you all need to do in order to kind of maximize the protections under state law. I believe this PowerPoint is going to go out later, so I'm not going to walk through each of these because I've already kind of discussed them. But please make sure that you are filling out that declaration of financial distress, returning that to your landlord, and then each month that you are unable to pay rent, please make sure that you're filling it out and providing it to your landlord. So next slide, please. Again, and then so if your landlord gives you a 15-day notice, please make sure that you are signing that declaration and returning it. And in the meantime, please make sure that you're applying for rental relief. This rental relief is open to everybody, regardless of immigration status, and it is free to apply for it. If you need assistance, please reach out. You can call the number. They will point you towards folks who can help you to fill out the application or to answer questions. Stay Housed LA has some resources to help with that. But please make sure that you are applying for that. I know that the rent debt that folks are carrying is really stressful, but this is at least one way that folks can get that addressed and relieve that mental stress that folks are feeling right now. So next slide, and then I think I'm passing it over to Pamela. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. So making sure that I'm in my language. Yes. So Katie really covered in detail our state protections. Regardless of where you live in the state, they are your protections. But the county has gone above and beyond just COVID-19 related protections against evictions. And I'm just going to do a quick refresher on those and happy to answer questions with Katie. The first is that just like the state, the county extended their tenant protections for COVID-19 until September 30th. The county extended their protections for residential tenants, commercial tenants, and mobile home space renters. And they also extended their rent freeze, so there cannot be a rent increase to rent stabilized units that are located in unincorporated LA County areas. So if we live in unincorporated East LA and City Terrace, our landlord cannot give us a rental increase. If your landlord gave you a rent increase anytime between March of 2020 till this month, guess what? Illegal. And I'll share how you can submit a complaint from that illegal rent increase. Next slide. So again, what does the county protections include? A reminder, due to a lot of advocacy that Eastside leads, Public Council, and so many other organizations, Self-Help Graphics included, and our partners, under the Healthy LA Coalition, we've been working closely. A shout out to District 1, to Supervisor Hilda Solis and her staff. We were really able to hear from other concerns. And one of those concerns was, hey, I have a pet, or I need to give posada, right, to a neighbor, to a friend, to a family member that may have been evicted, impacted. I need to take care of them during the pandemic. And therefore, the county actually gave us these additional protections. The first one is nuisance. So we're living together, right? Many families and their children together, a lot of noise. It became a protection to not evict due to nuisance during the pandemic, unless, of course, it impacts health and safety. We also, the county passed that the landlord cannot evict if the tenant denies entry to them. As a reminder, your property owner should give you 24 hours written notice before they can access your unit. But if they give you that 24-hour notice, they come to your door and they're not abiding, you just don't feel safe. They're not wearing a mask, they're not wearing protective gear. Maybe somebody in your household is sick and you say, no, you can't come in. That is actually a protection again. They cannot retaliate against you for that. They also passed additional no-fault eviction protections like Ellis Act, like the property owner wanting to move into the unit or wanting their family members to move in. Except very recently, in these next round of protections that just got passed by the county, there is an exception to the owner move-in. And that is if you are a property owner of a single family home, if you purchase that single family home before September 30th of this year, then you could potentially move into that home. And there are a lot of steps that you will need to make, like an advance notice to your tenant. And if you want to know more about what are those protections or what are those steps, come to a workshop where we're happy to send that out over email. But I just want you to know that if you're a single family homeowner, with some exceptions, you could potentially move into your home, provided that you give the notice and even relocation. There is also a rent freeze, again, like I mentioned, only in the unincorporated areas. The county also passed a tenant anti-harassment protection. So as Katie shared, nothing ever stopped a landlord from filing an eviction. However, we have seen a lot of illegal eviction notices, harassment to just push the tenant out, cutting of utilities. And so there's about close to 20 different definitions of harassment under the county ordinance. And if a tenant feels that their rights have been violated, they can file a complaint with DCBA. And last, there can be no late fees. So every month that your tenant or you as a tenant cannot pay the full rent, your landlord cannot add those late fees in the future or in your next rental period. Next rent period, yes, next slide. So how do you file a complaint? Again, if you were given an illegal rent increase, if anything that Katie and I have shared, you feel that your property owner has violated that, if you feel unsafe, you can call the number 833-223-RENT or 7368. I personally recommend that the tenant fill out an email to the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs, and in that email, give them your address, send them any notice. Eastside Leads is happy to support you in putting together an email to DCBA that documents the type of harassment that you've experienced. Why? Because in theory, not theory, technically DCBA will reach out and do an investigation on your harassment and hopefully support, right, in ending the harassment or reverse an illegal rent increase. I want to stop here. Katie, anything you want to share about the county protections that I may have missed?
No, I'm just answering a few of the questions in the chat.
Sally, thank you. Next slide. So again, the rental assistance, 100%, Katie shared. Now that's something that the tenant has access to and the property owner. So the County of Los Angeles, if you do not live in the city of Santa Clarita, if you do not live in the city of Long Beach or the city of LA, you have to encourage, you as a tenant or you as a property owner have to apply to the rent relief program of the state. And that's the Housing is Key website. And we can provide the links also in the chat. It will cover 100% of the past due rent. It is important that you apply as soon as possible. There have been challenges of especially monolingual Spanish speaking or other language speaking tenants accessing this. We have heard that it's a little slow sometimes. So as soon as you can, please fill that in. It really targets households with an income below 80% of LA County median income. Priority will be given to those that are at the 50% AMI or below. And I will share a chart with what that actually means in terms of your income. To Juana's question earlier, again, no one is, can be denied this due to citizenship or immigration status. And it is really specific to tenants that ideally you can provide a COVID-19 reason of impact. Again, maybe you lost your job, maybe your hours were reduced, you've had COVID, as examples. Next slide. So just here's a nice chart of what that means. If you are a family of 4, that in blue is what your income should not be more than that. So 56,300 for a family of 4 is 50% AMI. Those are the households that will be prioritized, but anybody making 90,100 family of 4 in this example qualifies to apply for this rent relief program. It's a chart, how you use it, you find how many individuals in your household, you look at the bottom and you will see the different tiers. You want to definitely fall, again, under the 80% AMI, and you will be given priority under the 50% AMI. Next slide. So how do you apply? You go to housingiskey.com. If you do not know how to use the internet, you don't have access to the internet, you can definitely call the number on the screen and somebody, an operator, will help you complete the application. It is, again, you are going to be required to provide documentation like proof of where you live. And if you need that help, Eastside Leads will be able to provide in-person support at the start of August, mid-August. And you can contact me if you know of a member that needs that support. Next slide. And so again, here are all the numbers that if you take one thing away from today, remember, you get a notice on your door. It looks like a court summons. It looks like a court document. You're going to call the number of Stay Housed LA. We're going to get you connected to an attorney to represent you in an eviction proceeding. If you are being illegally locked out, meaning your locks were changed, meaning maybe your utilities were cut, you want to call that hotline, the 213-340-4714, in case of emergencies. Again, only if you're facing lockout. And it's a number that goes to all partners in the Stay Housed LA County for support in the case of an illegal lockout. And again, if you want to file a complaint, you can do so directly with the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs. But really, follow us as Eastside Leads or Public Counsel, and we'll keep you updated on our upcoming workshops. And that is our presentation. Katie has been answering questions in the chat, but maybe we can take 5 minutes to highlight some of those responses or questions. But I leave that up to you, Heather. Do we have 4 minutes for questions or no time at all? And we can also take them to the chat.
I would say if there's any questions that we feel haven't been fully answered, I think you've been really doing a beautiful job, Katie and Pam, at answering and incorporating as we went through the presentation. But if anyone has an outstanding question they'd like to raise, please do so. Thank you again for, oh, we do have a raised hand from Juana. There we go. Juana, please ask your question.
Sí, estaba leyendo el comentario de lo que dice Katie. Y en Housing Authority, porque yo vivo ahí, yo que soy persona indocumentada, no califico ni tengo los beneficios. Entonces, ¿qué programas hay para las personas como yo en estatus no elegible y pagamos más de renta? Y esto se ha visto siempre. Y así como yo, hay miles de personas.
Yes, so I can start with that. Juana, thank you for the question, and definitely understand that you end up paying more rent because of your immigration status. But the rental assistance money that is out there that is being issued by the city of LA as well as the state, that is available for folks regardless of immigration status. So that money is out there and can be applied for to pay your rent regardless of what your rent is. 100% of rent that you haven't been able to pay can be paid out through that pot of money.
Any additional questions? Well, thank you guys so much once again for keeping us up to date on everything going on. It's exciting that so many of these protections are being extended. It's, of course, always difficult to access them in some cases and to make sure they're being fairly and equitably applied. So thank you always for being our supporters and protectors in this work. And of course, everyone on the call today, you know how to reach Pam and Katie if you need that additional information and support. And of course, Stay Housed LA is a wonderful set of resources for everyone. Thank you again, and we will therefore conclude that segment and move on to the bulk of our presentation and meeting today. Our time will be spent on the topic of workforce development and economic recovery. So let us move into that segment. I invite colleagues Jose Gardea and Rosa Soto, I believe, to kick us off with an orientation on this segment.
Yes, thank you, Heather. Can you hear me okay, folks?
You sound great, Jose.
Excellent. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well today and this week. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you a few thoughts on today's topic of workforce development. But let me first thank Rosa, Heather, and the entire HICP and Wellness Foundation team for, again, demonstrating leadership by elevating this topic to this level of engagement, analysis, and thoughtfulness. And while we don't expect to fully capture all the the nuances of workforce development over the next hour or so, we believe we can begin to establish a framework for future discussions and engagement that can achieve perhaps a deeper dive into this intersection of economic prosperity, training, access, and of course, equity. Those of you that know the Supervisor Solis in her career know that she is deeply passionate about workforce development and how it can bring both prosperity and opportunity to our community. The Supervisor has been a policy leader in workforce development in Sacramento, in Washington, D.C., and of course, inside the White House itself as Secretary of Labor for President Obama. Fortunately, she continues this leadership here at the local level as the chair for the County Board of Supervisors, and continues to advocate for policies that call for access, opportunity, and equity as we begin this economic recovery that is hopefully coming down the road. I wanted to just briefly mention a one key legislative goal that the supervisor has for this year is the creation of a county economic and workforce development department. Believe it or not, the county has never had a department that focuses exclusively on economic prosperity, but through the supervisor's work, this will elevate the importance of linking our economic growth with our ability to bring training and jobs to the most vulnerable populations in our county. And of course, as many of you know, she's using this principle to drive the current and future developments here on the LAC-USC campus, leading to what she calls a healthy village approach that puts people and care first. For many members of the public, workforce development is sometimes a compilation of acronyms and systems that, sometimes don't always invite full engagement with the community. But it's important to note, from my perspective, that behind many of these workforce development programs are real people that are highly skilled, dedicated, and passionate about the community and its well-being, and of course, its prosperity. And I think this morning you're going to hear from some of these individuals that fit this description. You're going to hear from individuals that are crafting and mobilizing the policies and resources at the department level, in this case, the county department level. You're going to hear from people that are building the strategic partnerships with our sister agencies to train our workforce. And of course, people that are designing and implementing the local hiring protocols and procedures as it relates with employers and contractors. So in other words, you're going to hear from people that care, that innovate, and move the ball forward. So as I said earlier, we don't expect to cover all aspects of workforce development this morning, but we did want to start this dialogue this morning and hopefully lead to a deeper conversation with local leaders and community members over the course of the next few months. So again, thank you all for your attention this morning, and enjoy the presentations. Thank you all.
All right, with that, I believe we're moving on, and Isidro is going to kick us off with a conversation about the economic recovery in LA County.
Yes, hi, good morning. This is, I'm Isidro Villanueva. I'm with the Workforce Development, Aging and Community Services Department, which, like Jose mentioned, soon in the near future, be part of the new Economic and Workforce Development Department that'll be, I guess, implemented later this year. I currently head our Economic and Business Development Division within our department here. So yes, I'm going to give just a quick glimpse of economic recovery, of where we're at and where we want to go. And like Jose mentioned, hopefully start us on this ongoing conversation that's much needed, and hopefully kind of help address some concerns, and again, just address where we're at and where we want to go as far as economic recovery. So next slide, please. So this information we just got last week from the Congressional Budget Office, which is reporting that the national economy is on track to regain all jobs lost during the coronavirus pandemic by the middle of next year. That's the expectation from the CBO. Now, this is due to the enormous amount of federal stimulus spending that has occurred and that has been provided during the pandemic, which has helped increase or spread that economic recovery. So again, hopefully by next year, the middle of next year, all the jobs that have been lost will start to be recovered. It's also expected that the inflation is temporary and is not a major concern. So the spikes that you're seeing in cars, airline tickets, gas should begin to recede later this year. And also it's expected that the economy would grow 6.7% for the year, which is the largest or the fastest annual growth in the United States since 1984. So again, that's a lot of good news. Next slide, please. The International Monetary Fund is also predicting the economy, the U.S. economy would grow 7% this year, and again that's after adjusting for inflation. And it's expected that by 2022 that the unemployment rate should fall below 4%, which I think gets us back to kind of where we were before the pandemic. Again, so a lot of good news, kind of now that things are starting to open up and the economy's starting to recover. We're seeing good things, and again trying to get to a level where we're at before. Now the CBO does note that all the stimulus spending has had a dampening effect on the supply of labor, and I think you'll hear a little bit about that later from some of our other presenters. But that's been largely due to it's supposed to go away by 2022 as these stimulus payments kind of recede and cease, and then as people adjust to the vaccination, that again we get more to back to a normal behavior. But as long as we continue to get people vaccinated and continue to provide PPE and just kind of provide that safe working environment, that again we'll see people feeling more comfortable or being able to get back to work. So next slide. So I'll go into a little bit kind of on what that means as far as workforce and occupation analysis here in LA County. So next slide. So earlier this year in February, the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation published a report for us on pathways for economic resiliency. And so because of the pandemic and due to the pandemic, what the report found was that regardless of where we were at and where we were, is that we needed to create over 730,000 jobs to provide a living wage, right? So we're not talking about lost jobs or, jobs that went away. We're just talking about what kind of jobs people had and the living wage or the wage that they were earning. And obviously there was a shortfall, there's a huge shortfall, and we need to create 738,000 jobs at a living wage in order to get kind of every county resident in a living wage job. Next slide. So what does that mean? So a living wage refers to a theoretical income level that allows an individual or family to afford basic necessities. And I think, I don't remember the institution that we kind of provides that sampling of what that living wage is. I think it's MTI, if I remember correctly. But for an adult a single adult in LA, it's about $30,000, a little over $30,000 a year. Now, when the report was first published by LEDC earlier this year, it was estimated that by the end of 2020, we had lost over 392,000 living wage jobs. Now, it was projected that in LA, we wouldn't see those jobs come back until 2024. With the recent news of the CBO, we have to go back and look at that and see if that's still true for LA County or not, or if we expect those jobs to come back quicker. But regardless of that, again, like I mentioned, we still need to create and find ways to get individuals into living wage jobs. Again, over 738,000 jobs need to be created to get people into a living wage job. Next slide. So in order to do that, or I guess, spur economic recovery and get people back into jobs, but also living wage jobs. What the LEDC report told us that these are the growth industries predicted to lead the economic recovery. So what we want to do on our end is kind of focus on what we call business engagement within these different industries, which is healthcare, public administration, warehousing and transportation, construction, advanced manufacturing, and personal services, and target these kind of occupations for our training and retraining of our dislocated workers and unemployed individuals, so that when they get into a job that, again, we know there's going to be growth and that there's a viable career pathway ahead of them, which hopefully then leads them into an actual, living wage job. So at our end, this is kind of where we'll be focusing, again, like I mentioned, our business engagement and then kind of training and retraining of individuals in these industries. Next slide. So the report identified these middle skilled occupations that are projected to be in demand over the next 4 years. So again, this is kind of where we'll be focusing our efforts here locally as far as, creating that pipelines or those pipelines for these different industries within these different occupations. And I think in a little bit you'll hear from Ozzy and others about, kind of the strategies around those efforts of creating those pipelines. Next slide. Now, what we did learn through the pandemic, and like all of you know here, is that there were certain populations that were most impacted or most affected by unemployment. So yeah, COVID has revealed and exacerbated existing racial, gender, and class inequities that were plaguing our communities. Next slide. So here are some just charts again of kind of where the impacts have been. Obviously, women were severely impacted, and then our Black, Latino, and Asian populations were impacted. I'm not going to go through all the numbers, and I believe this PowerPoint either has been shared or be shared, so you can take a closer look at that. But again, these are kind of again, as we know, the populations that have been more severely impacted. Next slide. And also to continue again on more the impacts is also based on age, and then whether or not you were, you had a high school diploma or a GED. Then that again also looked at, the individuals that were affected and dislocated and filing for unemployment claims. So next slide. And obviously our vulnerable populations as well. So our homeless population we know was impacted. So as Jose mentioned, with all of our now strategizing of economic recovery, we want to apply an equity lens to that as well. And so we want to take this data and make sure that we're focusing on these populations that have been impacted, like the populations that I mentioned before. But in addition to that, also looking at our homeless individuals, our LGBTQ populations, our returning citizens, and are uniquely able to, again, to make sure that they're included, and that we emphasize training programs and recruitment and outreach to those populations as well, so they can be part of again the economic recovery, and in that again we move them into living wage jobs. Next slide. And we can go on to the next slide. So with a report that was published in February, at the same time, there was a board motion that was passed on February 9th by the Board of Supervisors, and this motion was authored by its Supervisor Solis, which directed our department to convene a work group consisting of the Chief Executive Office, the Los Angeles County Development Authority, the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs, the Department of Regional Planning, the Department of Public Health, the Department of Health Services, the Department of Public Social Services, the Women and Girls Initiatives, and the Department of Arts and Culture to come up with a plan for the Pathways for Economic Resiliency implementation plan. So in their LEDC report, there was 8 different recommendations. And so what the Board of Supervisors asked us to do is to look at each recommendation and see how all the different departments can kind of implement strategies to implement those recommendations as laid out in the LEDC report. So in these different recommendations were training for high growth industries. Like I mentioned, we wanted to look at, okay, which are the high growth sectors where there's projected demand over the next couple of years, and then see how we can again target business engagement, business partners to identify those job opportunities, and then train individuals for those industries. So our department will be taking the lead in recommendations 1 and 2, which recommendation 2 is placing dislocated workers in those high growth industries. So again, like I mentioned, is outreaching and targeting those populations, and then putting them into the training pipelines aimed at those specific middle skilled occupations. There was also a recommendation for increased opportunities for employees, which means how to reduce discriminatory job practices of employers here in the county. And example is, a fair chance hiring campaign. So continue to make employers aware of ban the box and making sure they're not excluding anybody from applying for any specific jobs, and then also looking at, okay, are certain jobs, are there certain skills that are necessarily required, like for example having a high school diploma to apply for a job, or having a college degree to apply for a job, is it really necessary? So there's going to be some campaign awareness around that. Also continue to, like I said, COVID-19 safety, and making sure we're still continuing to provide a safe working environment for our businesses and our employees. Next slide. And then business reopening assistance, to continue to see how we can offer, grants, rental assistance, streamline permitting, so that again, either businesses are able to, stay in business, or how new businesses can kind of, open up shop and again, spur that economic recovery. And then there's some recommendations around land use optimization, again, looking at see how the county can develop, unused property into industry centers, or kind of invite, new industries to move in. And then addressing the digital divide, again, how to access broadband and internet via subsidies and regional infrastructure. And then also looking at from a workforce development perspective, is how do we provide quality career pathways within that industry or that sector. And then looking at childcare as well, how to expand childcare access through either vouchers, provider grants, or new services, including transportation. So we've convened all the different departments. They have looked at each specific recommendation, and we're finalizing a report back to the Board of Supervisors to address all these recommendations and kind of what the strategies will be moving forward around these recommendations. So again, so that we spur not only just economic recovery, but then long-term economic growth. And then with that, incorporating that to, like Jose mentioned, into the new economic and workforce development department as their mission moving forward. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Ozzy to kind of speak as to what the community colleges are doing around training opportunities. So thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Isidro, and thank you to the HICP for providing us an opportunity to share our platform today. My name is Ozzy Lopez. I know that on the introduction, it indicated Immersion Workforce Los Angeles. That's a small nonprofit that I founded a couple of years ago that's still operating. But today I'm going to present on the work that I do on my day-to-day, which is the Health Workforce Initiative, representing the California community colleges. Wanted to, Isidro touched on the work that Los Angeles County is, the foundation that's being created to put people back to work, to get the economy up and going post-pandemic. And there are tremendous opportunities within our community college system. There are 19 community colleges in Los Angeles County, so there are multiple entry points that individuals all across LA can take if they're interested in getting back into the workforce, or based on developing those pathways that Isidro mentioned. Well, it's how are those pathways created, right? Where can I get trained to be able to participate in a pathway? So there is a website that I've listed on here, but I'm also going to put it in the chat. It's called the Community Colleges of Los Angeles County. I don't know if it can, what, I'm sorry, it didn't come up as a link. Let me redo this here for you. Hopefully it can come out as a link. It's still not showing. I'll get it to link up. So the ccla.com is a website that I encourage you all to visit. It's www.ccla.com. What that website has is it has a listing of all of the 19 community colleges that are in LA County, and you are able to self-navigate and indicate what types of programs you are interested in, where would you like to, what type of training you like to take. And you can kind of do a self-navigating process there to be able to really position yourself to be trained in one of the high growth industries that I've indicated here on top. So to Isidro's report, health, energy, construction and utilities, advanced transportation, logistics, business and entrepreneurship, and ICT digital media are 5 of multiple industries that are currently high growth industries that even during the pandemic have shown a significant increase in employment opportunities. One of the things that I would highly recommend for the employers or the nonprofits that are on the line, today, is to reach out to the community colleges if you're looking to develop a cohort model pathway program. because what the pandemic did, it provided us with an opportunity to do what we're doing today, right? Meet virtually via Zoom, via Microsoft Teams, via the different web platforms that we may have. And the community colleges have really taken to it and created short-term, whether through CTE, career technical education programs, or other short-term vocational programs, distance learning certification programs that can provide you with the opportunity to get trained in a specific field, can put you in a competitive position to be employed. So I really encourage you all to take advantage of the opportunities that exist today, so that we can look at how can we get our communities back into the workforce. And I've included it in the chat. I'll put it up as a link, but because I'm speaking to the HICP today, the 3 local community colleges that we have are LA City College, East LA College, and Trade Tech College. Those are kind of like the 3 accessible community colleges that provide some phenomenal career technical and education and other career pathway programs, that I'll put them in the link so that you can have access to them. But I would encourage you, if you're looking to get back into the job force, if you have family members, children, aunts, uncles that are looking to get back into the workforce, to visit these websites and begin the process of exploring how can I get myself back on track through a career pathway. Something that I like to recommend to the HICP moving forward is it possible for us to invite a college, right? And I think that they're going to allude to that towards in a bit about having whether it's a symposium or a workshop where the colleges can come to our community meetings and speak on the programs that they offer and the accessibility and the accessibility and the process that one needs to take to be able to enroll in one of the programs that can put you back to work. If you're looking for short-term certification to get back on the job in the next 3 to 6 months or in the next year, what does that career ladder look like for you? So I encourage you to visit the websites. I'll put them up on the link, get them on the chat right now. I know that Isidro is going to make this page available, so that particular link is live on the page. But those are some of the opportunities that the colleges have. I encourage you to visit it. And I am also available to take any questions on pathways leading to employment and self-sustainability. So thank you very much on my end.
Thanks, Ozzy. And then we'll go into, I think Rosa is going to speak on the next couple of slides.
Good morning, everyone. It's so exciting to be talking about this topic, because so much of the last year has been spent on, helping people stay healthy and stay at home. Now it's about our economic recovery and really looking at how it is that we support those most vulnerable, right? And being able to take advantage of the things that are happening at the federal, at the state, and at our county level. Isidro, the presentation, that you've given, really gives us a huge spectrum of what's possible and how, you all are thinking of economic recovery. For us at the Health Innovation Community Partnership, you might agree with me, it's important how it touches ground. It's important how it touches people, and whether it is we're actually making a difference. And so my job today in the presentation is just to talk about what's been happening in the background with all the partners that you're hearing today, and with Supervisor Solis's office. So again, recognizing Supervisor for her incredible wisdom and priority to this issue, and particularly the launch of the Health Innovation Community Partnership, which makes this table possible today. I've spent some time over the last several months highlighting the importance of the health equity table that this space provides, and how that's important, because we've been able, through the process of thinking through workforce development, to imagine what it means to touch the people that we're trying to impact. How do we reach local and target hire? So Isidro has been able to help facilitate those work group meetings for us and ensure that we come together regularly, sometimes even twice a month, to ensure that we are looking deep at how do we begin early to identify opportunity and the intersection, right, of opportunity and need. And so for that, I'm just grateful to every community member that's been joining us every month. Just reminding everyone, Health Innovation Community Partnership is here to ensure that the use of county assets and our development in the area is responsive to community needs and priorities, and are tied to near and long-term community benefits, right? So that's where we started. If I can have the next slide. What ended up happening through this process is that we were able to go out into the community and ask our community what really concerns them, where are the gaps, where are their opportunities, and that allowed us the opportunity to think about how do we continue to engage community. And so with that, we've been able to think about our different assets on campus and seeing how it is that we can connect with our community to improve the delivery of our services, not only when buildings are open, but from the very, very beginning when we're developing ideas and opportunities. So, so with that, you know, we were able to then connect, and can I have the next slide, to see where there were clusters of opportunity and information. And this is where many of you who have been part of this process from the very beginning, you know, see the priority wheel as a real opportunity to highlight and elevate shared community benefits for our area surrounding LAC USC Medical Center. And so that, along with the policy successes that you see here on the left, you know, have ensured that we are now identifying where the needs are and where some opportunities, but really beginning to formulate how we begin to address these policies, you know, that allow a roadmap for us to be thinking about how do we improve buildings themselves? How do we improve the economic development opportunity of them? How do we improve local target hire? How do we improve a thinking around the reuse, for example, of our general hospital building that's here behind me as my backdrop? Implementing, you know, just—
I'll go get you the breakfast and I'll come back really quick.
Rosa, you've been muted. If you could unmute yourself, sorry.
I just did. Thank you so much. So yeah, so it's really thinking about that connection and the policy successes. But again, nothing really matters unless it touches people. So let's go to the next slide. So we took some time after we developed the priority wheel and the definition for each of our 7 priority areas for community benefits to ensure that we understood where people really wanted to see a change. And so I've listed here a few of the ideas that we came up with. And again, thinking about not only immediate opportunities, but short, mid, and long-term impact, right? We talked about how the policy around local and target hire, you know, gave us a threshold of 30% local hire, 10% target hire. But in meeting with our local and target hire work group, you know, the work group really pushed beyond that to say, is it possible to achieve an aspirational goal of 50% and, you know, really push that target hire goal beyond 10%. Thinking about, you know, the hyper local, thinking about the 2-mile radius, right, around our developments, right? And that be an area that's prioritized for hire, because in, you know, highly dense urban areas, right, 5 miles makes a huge difference. We want to make sure that we're making transformative change and really bringing all the players around. What do we really mean with impact? Incorporating our HICP membership, incorporating our community into planning and design phases, right, of the developments that were already underway. Developing a plan to ensure public awareness of the project beyond what's the required notice that people get, you know, around an immediate development. But also thinking about the environmental impact, you know, the opportunity for how the new development will connect to the community and how will the community receive that new development. Ensuring that there was, you know, procurement opportunities for small businesses, ensuring that other policy goal that the supervisor said of 1% of project budgets dedicated to local art, right? And then getting community input about what kind of art goes up into those buildings, not just the developer or our county partner, but really like, you know, working together as a community. And then finally, you know, businesses, you know, require that DPW works with, you know, requiring them to do the local affair and local engagement strategies, and those being so important to our our ongoing success, that it's not a one and done, but that we do a process continually. So these are just some of the things that I pulled out, from that original community engagement process, as well as our development and definitions for the benefits for the current projects on campus. So just want to thank everyone who's been participating. Know that we are listening, know that it is making impact. And so here is where we're at. Let's go to the next slide. All right, and with that, I will hand it over to our wonderful Alicia Ramos.
Thank you, Rosa. And Ozzy and Isidro, all of this is coming together in sort of a big picture that we're going to connect all the dots here in just a moment. So good morning, my name is Alicia Ramos and I am with LA County Public Works. We've been managing a lot of the projects around the Med Center campus, and I just want to give a little bit of insight into the perspective through the construction industry and through the project management industry that our department represents. So I'm going to cover a little bit about the construction projects and the local target worker hire outcomes that we've seen. So in general, I want to address the volume of projects. To Isidro's points earlier, we expect an economic recovery here. We're seeing signs of it. We know that for LA County specifically, there are a lot of endeavors, a lot of services that among the Board of Supervisors, a lot of ambition for these future projects and services to take root. And we expect these projects, they're coming, they're here now, and they're more coming. But we're one element within the Southern California region. We're a large element, but when we look at the Southern California region in a bigger context, we still have the other counties around us with similar endeavors. And so we will see projects coming to market. We will see other counties with their projects, their endeavors coming to market. And where that's leading us in terms of what we want to be proactive about is being ahead, or at least keeping pace with how are we going to construct these projects. We have a real need for the construction industries. Again, echoing back to what Isidro had touched on in Ozzy. We're looking at areas of development that we know we expect big growth coming, and we need the labor market to be able to supply that measure of support so that these projects can come to fruition. So we already see and understand among the construction industry that we do have a labor shortage. And so we're all competing. When I mentioned LA County and the other counties, we're at some point, depending on what projects come to market when, we're all competing for essentially the same labor source. And what that means is that if we don't have the adequate labor to supply these projects as they come, projects get delayed, projects go up in price, projects get reevaluated because they do have to take maybe a back seat to another project that took priority. And we have to look at it in the bigger context of Southern California, that development is happening in LA County, but development is happening everywhere. And so we have this rising need for skilled labor, and that is something that we're trying to balance out with the local targeted worker hire aspirations, because we do want to see these dollars, these benefits go to those local communities where these projects will be constructed, where they will service these communities. But we have to recognize that there's this balance, this what I'll call maybe an imbalance right now, that we would want to see start to balance more so that these needs can be met in the future. So having given some context to the construction industry, I want to go into the results that we've seen recently in the most recent campus projects. And I've just summarized things. So if you can see on your screen, the third bullet, we're looking at what the required thresholds were. So prior to Supervisor Solis's motion for the aspirational goals, the county has a policy that requires at certain budget levels, which is $2.5 million and higher, mandatory local worker at 30% and target worker at 10%. So to Rosa's points earlier, with that community communication, connection, articulating what does the community want to see, what are those priorities, and supervisor being able to bring that to a motion, we got to the aspirational goals of local worker hire at 50% and again, looking at target worker to go beyond the 10%. So where did we fall with this? So in the recent projects, we've seen that the local target worker range, and I've got a range because we have several projects, and at several different points in the construction, you'll see different numbers. And that does reflect the amount of work going on during a phase of the project and the type of work. We talked about skilled labor. And as you become more developed in that skill, there are more finite jobs where higher skill level is required. So where we fell in the local worker aspirational goals, we ranged between 31 and 68%. So in some areas, just inching over that minimum, but in other areas, really knocking it out of the park as far as hitting and exceeding the aspirational goals. And I put this out there because it's important to see not just where we meet that goal, but where we're still needing improvement. So part of this endeavor is to meet those goals, but to also find out why is it that we're not meeting those goals in certain circumstances, and take a deeper dive so we can inform ourselves as to what's needed next to build on this success. And as far as targeted worker, we ranged between 17 and 42%. So we did well beyond the 10%. And that, I think, is something that we can be exceptionally proud of in these projects. So that's a snapshot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to our jobs developer, Modern Times. Modern Times was brought on board, and where this all connects together, where I say we're connecting the dots, is that we've seen from different resources, what we have through WEDACs, what we have through the community colleges, what we have by way of the community input. There becomes this communication network that says, okay, how do we pull all these resources together and start to really hone in? Where do we need the improvement? Where are we succeeding? What more can we do to get the word out on what we need in the community? So we've brought jobs developer on, Modern Times. I'm going to turn it over to Anahid with Modern Times. She's going to tell you a little bit more about what those endeavors are, what Modern Times has helped us to bring to the picture to improve, and also how we can measure our success, measure these numbers with what we call the dashboard. So Anahid, I'm going to hand it over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alicia. I'm so happy to be here among such esteemed colleagues. So good morning, everyone. My name is Anahid Yekizarian. I am the Director of Community Programs for Modern Times. I lead all the efforts for workforce development and jobs coordination for the company, and have recently seen successful implementation of various workforce programs on several key Los Angeles area mega projects, including projects for various agencies, including the County of Los Angeles, City of Long Beach, all of the Metro Purple Line projects, and a few others. I will be acting as the designated supervisor for the Jobs Developer Program for the County of Los Angeles. And I'm hoping some of you know what the Jobs Developer Program is, but for those who don't, I would like to give a high overview of what our purpose is and our scope of work. So we recognize the need to collaborate. And I think the biggest thing that you'll see that we will be doing as a jobs developer is facilitating the collaboration between four major components. First being the jobs coordinators and the contractors that are working on these projects that include the LAC-USC campus projects. As jobs coordinators ourselves, we understand the challenges that can be presented in these roles and want to work closely to understand the craft needs, because as Alicia mentioned, there is going to be a shortage of craft with all the construction happening around our county. It is just inevitable that this is going to happen. The second partner will be those who are the community partners, the individuals who are on this call, the various community-based organizations, those who can help provide candidates the resources they need to overcome the barriers, because these candidates, these individuals who are interested in a career in construction, they are really the focus of this entire program. And we want to do everything that we can to help them reach the goal of becoming a trades worker. So removing these barriers that they may face will be a really important factor. And we want to work with the various partners that are already in the system and not reinvent the wheel. So whether it be WEDACs or, the HICP, the LAC Medical, USC Medical Resources, All of those are the individuals we'll be working with, the community colleges, to help overcome the barriers that these candidates may face along this trajectory. We also want to identify candidates throughout this process to help them prepare for these placement opportunities. So with that said, we'll be doing hosting of events, some canvassing, different things that I'll go over a little bit more on the next slide. But the really important thing is to identify these candidates, because what we want to do is something that has been talked about throughout all of workforce development, which is the need to track the trajectory of candidates, to understand when a candidate enters this space of, I want a career in the world of construction, where they come in. Is it that they have experience, prior experience, but no, let's say, formal training? Is it that they've seen individuals within their family or friends groups who have become successful through a career in construction? Is it, you know, STEM education exposure that's taught them that construction really is a leading industry and they can have fulfillment in this field? So understanding who these candidates are when they first come to us, helping guide them through this process, and truly tracking their trajectory to see where the shortfalls are, what the general barriers are, what we can do to be more prepared as a group to help these individuals towards succeeding in these careers. And finally, our role as a jobs facilitator will be the collaboration with all these different groups through our management system. We will talk more about the dashboard in a little bit. The dashboard is meant to be a public-facing, open resource to really help convey the message of all things good that are happening on specifically the LAC USC projects, as well as other county projects. So we have the overall goal to create a pipeline of shovel-ready workers. That's really the goal of our entire scope. And with that said, we want to do this by developing a few different things that will help individuals who are interested in becoming these shovel-ready workers succeed toward being that. Developing collateral material in various languages so that they can be provided, so that individuals know what resources they have available to them. They are able to come to us as a jobs developer, and we will play essentially the quarterback role of sending them to the various organizations that will fit them best. So if someone comes to us and they are already in a pre-apprenticeship and they need training tools, for instance, then we're able to guide them to the appropriate LA County resource. If they need childcare services so that they can be successful, same thing. We want to guide them to the proper LA County resources. So with that said, we're working very closely with WEDACs, the AJCCs, and others to ensure that these candidates know where they need to go. We're obviously going to be hosting events. We are, I believe we're already on the next slide. So if we can stop here for a second. Thank you. So we'll be hosting outreach events. One outreach event, I've already listed the link for here. I'm going to drop the link actually in the chat bar below. If you feel like your organization can participate and, do something at this picnic that we want to put together. So it's going to be a family picnic specifically for tradeswomen building LA. That's actually what it's called. It's tradeswomen building LA. And the hope for this picnic is to let individuals come out and meet, whether it be contractors, county referral sources, and jobs coordinators, people who can help them during this trajectory. We'll have Winter Women in Non-Traditional Employment Roles as one of the sponsors, and they will be doing a lot of the process of intake, getting to meet these candidates, letting them know what a pre-apprenticeship actually looks like. So if you are interested in participating in this event, if you feel that your organization can help, please go ahead and follow that link that's listed right there. The other portion.
We need the next slide, Heather. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. So on the left, you'll see our flyer for the Tradeswomen Building LA picnic. And the link again down there is for the RSVP. The previous link I will ask to have shared so that everyone who's interested can participate. But the other portion of this will be two things: the student internship and the dashboard. Before I let Robert Zardaneta, one of my partners on this project, and Steve Davidson hop in, I'm going to ask Robert to kind of explain at a high level the various ways that we are working with different collaborators to help overcome these barriers that I was mentioning.
So, so part of the work that we're afforded is having the opportunity to identify barriers within this, within developing a pipeline and developing potential solutions and facilitating connections and leveraging meaningful existing resources. So I think some of the important things are really, within this industry is really marketing the industry, making construction sexy and as a desirable career pathway for folks within our, within our schools and communities. Really pushing, that, within the community that, the community is the most impacted by a lot of these developments, personally, taking their kids to school, traffic, all the traffic implications, all the noise, all the things, that impact the community. And we want to make sure that those community members that are impacted are also first in line to reap the benefits of these community developments. And, in order to do that, we need to develop these pipelines and help do some of the handholding, do some of the training to, create those pathways within construction. And on top of that, supporting training programs by vetting and developing strong candidates, working with our pre-apprenticeship programs within, the LA Occupational Center and Skills Center and folks like Winner to really, kind of vet successful candidates to make sure that the candidates that are coming through their program are going to be successful and fully understand, what it takes to, for a career in construction. Linking industry with education, I want to give a shout out to Ozzy for connecting me with Bruce Noble, his counterpart within the community college part, California community colleges, in helping connect us. And we've been talking about how we could support the development of training opportunities for skilled and highly skilled labor needs. One of the things that we're seeing within our local hire numbers is, our local hire numbers are really strong on projects that, have a heavy need for laborers or carpenters. But once the more specialized labor comes in, the more highly skilled labor opportunities coming on our projects, we're seeing that there's a drop in our local hire numbers. And that's just because we don't have that pipeline of shovel-ready workforce, that's more geared towards, towards these higher skilled levels. So really excited about the opportunities that are coming, within the partnerships within our community, because we really feel wholeheartedly that we have all the folks, we have the team, now we just have to, create the strategies to really, implement, a lot of this work.
Thank you, Robert. So with that said, I think the two flyers that you see right now on your screen, one is for the picnic. We will go ahead and get that flyer out to everyone. And the second is for the internship. And I think this speaks highly to what Robert was just speaking about, which is the desire to ensure that those who are interested in a career in construction, specifically those we're aiming at 16 to 24-year-olds who have the interest in pursuing a career in construction, but may not have the formal training or the preparation to even go into a pre-apprenticeship. So what we've developed, and I'm going to let Robert speak to this because this is his baby, is a pre-apprenticeship that will help these students really have a better feel and understanding prior to jumping into a pre-apprenticeship, which oftentimes can be a little bit overwhelming to them.
Great. So we're excited to announce the Construction and Associated Careers Training Internship Program to support our the job development programming within the LA USC Medical Center facility. The purpose of the internship is to engage and expose high school and college students interested in the fields of design, build, construction to those, LA USC medical facility projects and surrounding projects. And we really want to, build the foundation of a pipeline of workers and bring awareness of local hire, the impacts of local hire to local developments, and vet potential candidates into, a more formalized training program. At the same time, it'll provide a meaningful paid or credit internship opportunities. The program will be made available to local disadvantaged LA County and high school students and college students ages 16 to 24 that have an interest in design, build, construction management through their field of study, completed coursework, or other experience. So we have existing relationships with local high schools, pre-apprenticeship programs, incorporating high school and or post-secondary educational programming, community colleges, and universities through LA County. Via our partnership with WEDAX, we'll be working with local workforce centers and AJCCs. They'll participate in our program by co-enrolling and referring potential candidates. So we'll recruit graduates and receive referrals from our various program partners. Ideally, 2 interns, 1 high school, 1 college student will be assigned to each of the 3 medical facility projects, either the Women's Children's Hospital, the Restorative Care Village, or the Child Care Center, resulting in a total of 6 interns. The interns will work between 100 and 120 hours over their break. The interns will be assigned to projects that will support our job development services staff by performing database entry for job certified firms, follow-up calls with out of work candidates within the 2-mile radius or the tier 1 local candidate, creating outreach plans of actions with community-based agencies and event coordination of outreach events, and also participate regularly in the HICP workforce subcommittee meetings. Each intern will be onboarded and trained and supervised by me, and they'll work directly with the jobs developer team. That experience will afford the interns the opportunity to gain meaningful exposure to the local developments and get a well-rounded firsthand exposure to the industry as opposed to simply doing busy work. They'll utilize a dashboard to study local hiring trends, identify skilled positions, support outreach efforts. As our community are most impacted by these developments, they'll have a better understanding of how the community will benefit from them and disseminate this information to their families in the community. So if you're interested, or if any of your clients or constituents, feel you might be interested in applying for the program, please drop your email into the chat, and we can communicate. So we can coordinate an info session. We hope to begin the internships early August 2021.
Thank you so much, Robert. And our last bit is the dashboard. And I know that this is a really, really important tool, and we just wanted to go ahead and present that today. And the dashboard has the intention of presenting a lot of the information that we are privy to in these meetings and our various county meetings with regards to the projects that are taking place at the LAC USC campus and around. So the targeted numbers, the local numbers, the different information that we feel is really, really important. And so what we wanted to do as a jobs developer within this scope was develop essentially, so it is a website, but the idea is for it to be a dashboard, like very high level informational tool. So it can be used by essentially anyone. So the idea is that it's public facing and it is mobile friendly. The first thing that you'll see when you land on here is job seekers jobs. So if you land on here and you are a job seeker and you click on that jobs link, you will see a few different things. So that I will let Steve walk through, but I will give you guys a little bit of information other than that on the idea of the dashboard. The dashboard was really conceived from the notion that we want people to have a place to come. So if they see this construction that's happening around them, they have an idea of a place to go to so that they can understand what's happening and for them to see the good that those projects are doing. So with the local numbers being posted, with the success stories being posted, with the job seeker information being posted, all those various things make them have a better understanding of why there's so much noise and construction happening around them and that it is actually benefiting them. Furthermore, it's a really, really great tool for individuals such as ourselves to have these conversations when someone says, well, is this really benefiting our community? You can pull it up on your mobile phone in the middle of a conversation, go to the project that you want to speak to, and actually show them the stats for that month that are up to date and be able to have a more robust conversation about really what's going on around the community with these projects and the ROI, the return on investment that they're seeing through these construction projects. So with that said, I will turn over to Steve Davidson. He is our systems administrator and the architect of our dashboard.
Thank you, Ann, and good morning, everybody. On the screen here is a little presentation of the dashboard here. This is the actual live dashboard. And I'm just going to give kind of a high-level overview of what's here and sort of the basics about it, but would definitely invite everybody to go and visit it to kind of drill down into the specifics of each of these projects and into the numbers, you know, in your own time and kind of explore around because there's really quite a lot here. So this is the landing page that you'll be greeted with when you first enter it. And as An mentioned, one of the first things you see is just, you know, information. There's a button here that we can click on and show sort of some available jobs around. And I apologize, my internet isn't the fastest here, but it should load up here pretty quick. And we see the collateral material that was developed, an invitation to sign up to receive more information about employment opportunities and to work with some of the job developers to find appropriate ones. And also just kind of a list of other employment opportunities that we've been invited to put onto the page here. All sorts of different things with different skill levels. And this list will kind of constantly be updated and changed based on, you know, any information that we receive that is deemed appropriate to put on this page here. So we'll go back to the home page here. And as I said, there is an invitation for people to sign up to be connected by our jobs team and by jobs developer. There's links kind of all over the place on the jobs page and here as well to where they can go and fill out a form and to enter their information. And that goes into our system and we'll notify our jobs team and get in touch with them and kind of figure out where they're at in their job search and where they might be the best fit as far as one of these potential projects, or if there's anything else out there that we may be able to connect them with. Other things on this homepage here, there's some information about the local targeted worker hire program, as well as a link back to the county's page about it. A little bit about the upcoming events that we have here. Again, this one kind of gets constantly rotated as time goes on and as we learn of more upcoming events. A little blurb about some success stories. We thought it was important to highlight some of these stories of people that have gone through these successes with working on these projects. But there's also a page that as all these projects go on, and as time goes on, we'll have a whole list of all of the stories. For now, there's just one, but again, as it goes on, we would really love to be highlighting all of these success stories as sort of inspiration for everybody, and also just to highlight the successes of the program in general. A little bit further down the page, it just kind of explains a little bit about what is a local and targeted worker, and gives a list of all the zip codes and kind of where they fall within the county for the different projects. It does change a little bit for the various projects, but that's a general list there of it all, as well as an interactive map to where people can sort of see where they might fit in the grand scheme of whether or not they could be considered a local worker and which level and sort of where if they may fall within that 2-mile radius of some of these projects here. Now, over on the left, we have a list of the projects that we're currently tracking. And I'll just click on one here. They're pretty much all the same, and they show the very similar statistics for each project, but obviously the statistics for each project will be different, but they're all laid out pretty similarly. So I'll just go through one of them here. Towards the top, we have a description of the project and a little photo there, just as a little visual of what's going on and a description of the project there. Moving down a little bit further, we have kind of more high-level information about the project, about how many hours have been completed from it, and the overall picture of the local and targeted worker hour goals. As Alicia mentioned, in most of these projects, the goals are being very well met and a lot of times exceeded. With this project here, the local worker hours are currently at 49.5%, with a goal of being 30% and the aspirational goal of being 50%. So as these projects go on, these will change and fluctuate as it goes, but as it currently stands, this Women's and Children's Hospital demolition project is in very good shape as far as the goals go. And that's kind of the idea of this, is to keep the community and everybody apprised of how these projects are going, how the goals are being met. And also it does shine a light on those successes, but also can also shine a light on some of the areas that could be improved as well. So this is a very important part of the process as well, because it sort of takes it all and distills it down into an easily digestible sort of visual way to see at a glance where these projects stand. So moving a little bit further down the page here, we see a monthly breakdown of project hours, and these are separated by the trades. So all this data comes from payroll data that's paid out to the workers, and we put it into our system, and it kind of goes through it all and churns it through and gives us these nice graphs, and we're able to easily see sort of which trades have been working on the project, which could be important for people seeking jobs, kind of wondering where the demands are for these different projects, and they may decide to get involved with or consider as a possible route for their careers. But it's very interesting too, because we'll see that these also change as they go on, and per project it changes a lot too. Because this one's a demolition project, we will see a lot of operating engineers, laborers, asbestos removers, things like that. But for other projects, you know, many different crafts are involved. A little bit further down here, we see month-to-month trends of hours accrued by workers, and sort of split up by their zip codes. We have the 2-mile radius workers, other in LA County workers, and the tier 1s and tier 2s. And we can kind of see month to month how those hours are shaping up for those different classifications there. And next to that one, we have hours worked by targeted workers. So we can track over time, month to month, sort of the hours that all of the targeted workers on the project are accruing as it goes on. And again, it is used to both highlight the successes and also raise questions of what can be improved and what can be done better as well. Excuse my mouse there. And finally, at the bottom here, we see a breakdown of the total project hours by zip code of residence and also by ethnicity. A couple of things that were important to be seen and also tracked that a lot of times people are curious about. So this just kind of shows an overall of all of the hours worked, sort of the breakdown of whether they were tier 1, tier 2, within that 2-mile zip code, or other in LA County. And the same thing with the ethnicity breakdown as well. Workers sort of self-identify as the ethnicity that they most closely align with. A lot of times they don't, so we will have these non-specified as well. But as the other projects progress, and as all these projects progress, you know, again, these statistics will be updated and hopefully provide a very important and very useful tool for the community and also the county to kind of be able to look and not have to spend a lot of time combing through data to look over the status of all of these projects. So that's kind of a brief overview of the dashboard. There are a couple other projects listed here, and there may be more listed in the future as well, as we continue to work with the county in the local targeted worker hire program. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And we're happy to entertain any questions with the time we've got left, or anything like that. So please feel free.
Yes, we have we have a question from Pamela wanting to know if there's any plan to bring on board the third and dangler workers into the Modern Times dashboard.
So the work, yes. So we have spoken to the various resources, and it has been determined that we will be able to support all projects on our dashboard. So we are working with that specific project, and we'll be potentially working with other projects as well in the future to support their information on the dashboard.
Great. We have a raised hand from Ari Gutierrez.
Hi. Yeah, I wanted to ask, I think I heard it, and I heard a lot of about target employees, but I recall that, you know, and I think was mentioned the transgender, but for example, we have folks who applied to our scholarship program. We had a transgender male who was in a welding program at the trade school. So that person would want to go, you know, into the construction area and all that. And then we have another transgender person who is female who, you know, wants to go in more traditional female job roles. So my question is, how do we support these folks to get connected to the right spot? And is there you know, you have to know kind of like what their situation is. And then also we have people who are asylum, and they are qualified to work in the United States. They've got the permit, but we just need to get them into the wheels of the system to help them secure employment. So any comments on that and how we're supporting these, I don't want to say special needs, but like extra support communities?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, Ari. So with that said, we are going to be working, like we said, with our various resource partners. So I think the best thing we can do right now is to have those individuals contact us, and then we'll work with the various resources to determine what it is that they need specifically. So do they need specific resources to overcome certain barriers while they move forward in their career path? So we have had a lot of success in being able to work closely with individuals across the board. And I think that's where we specialize, is that hand holding essentially. So we want to meet people from the get-go, really get to know them, understand their needs, understand their path, their trajectory, their desires, so that we can help get them placed specifically where they want to go. With that said, we work closely with various jobs coordinators, contractors, prime contractors, and we have successfully sponsored several individuals on various projects across the Southern California area. So that's another important thing, is being able to get someone not just through a pre-apprenticeship, but to get them sponsored onto a project, because I think that's one component that's often overlooked. Just coming out of a pre-apprenticeship does not mean you will then just get a job in construction. There has to be a contractor who is willing to sponsor you on and essentially allow you to start your work there. So that is something that we definitely work closely, and Robert specializes in, and we will be doing.
And also, you know, as prior to working at Modern Times, my experiences was as a pre-apprenticeship program provider within this neighborhood. You know, I was executive director at La Causa Youth Build and Calo Youth Build in Boyle Heights. And we had a long history of, you know, working with the LGBT community and placing them into our pre-apprenticeship programs. Several transgender youth, you know, were provided a safe space for us at our training programs. I don't think I ever placed any in construction, because as our training programs went, you know, we exposed them to different careers, you know, but we have had success in working with those folks, and And so we're very comfortable, and we know we know a lot of the different partners, especially the ones in the areas that are working with the Building Healthy Communities Collaborative. So, I mean, this is the importance of this collaboration. You know, if you send us folks, we know how to work with them, and we're excited to place them. So, but we can't connect with these folks. You know, it'll be a lot easier for us to connect with these folks if they're referred to us by our partners.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pamela has a question.
Yes, thank you. I think my question is just about clarity on how this partnership will move forward in supporting local hire and targeted hire. So I'd like more of a, so that by clarity, I mean, we have a local and targeted hire subcommittee made up of members of the HICP. To be a partner in HICP, our bylaws say that we have to participate in at least one subcommittee. So I wonder, now that Modern Times is onboarded and we have our jobs developer, what is the ask, what will be the ongoing ask from local and targeted hire subcommittee members? Will we still meet monthly? What are the expectations of that subcommittee group? To support Modern Times and local hire, and how long will Modern Times be part of this process of local and targeted hire? Is it a 3-year commitment? So I'd like that timeline.
So Heather, this is Alicia. I can speak a little bit to the Modern Times component. I don't necessarily want to speak in the bigger picture about HICP. Maybe Rosa can help me with that. But let me just speak a little bit to the Modern Times component. So Modern Times involvement and the bringing on of Modern Times is not in any way to supplant the committees within HICP. Modern Times is really a component, a resource to help us structure. Where I started with was we're kind of connecting the dots, right? Within the county up until this time, we have resources in WEDACs, we have resources in our outside training centers, we have the community interests and listening to what the community would like to see happen. And it's about bringing all that together. And so when we looked at that from a bigger picture, we identified that we need some sort of connection and network, if you will. And that's where Modern Times involvement became instrumental. Is, you know, they had this experience across projects across, you know, the country, and it's bringing someone on board who knows how to make those connections, make that streamline pipeline connection that we've been looking for. So this is really instrumental. Modern Times involvement is really instrumental about creating structure for us. Modern Times specifically is on board for the campus projects that we have. There's a specific list of projects, but we are working with that, just like we're adding Third and Dangler, and there can be other projects. So it is an initial effort to put structure, and we are hoping that that structure will continue, but continue with county involvement, with HICP involvement, kind of planting the seed, if you will, and then seeing how we need to support that to keep it growing. So I hope that gives a little bit of insight as to Modern Times' role here and perhaps the duration and what we're hopeful will come out of it. Rosa, I don't know if you want to speak to the HICP component.
I may have missed the question, Pam, so my apologies, but I do know that, you know, we are trying to figure out the long-term sustainability of, you know, like the things we invest in, right? So things like this dashboard, things like, you know, just continuing to evolve the tools and resources that we have so as to continue to be responsive. You know, you know, just as we were doing the presentation, I was just reflecting on, you know, the fact that there was a world before Zoom, right? So many of us forgot that. So for me, it's the, you know, opportunity to be thinking about where is our community today. There's still those technology gaps. There's still the challenge that we're facing with the groups within our local and target, right, subset umbrella. So we need to, you know, ensure that we're doing the work. And so whether it's doing that through the work group opportunity or through other means, I think it's the right time to have that conversation. I think additionally, Pam, in our co-design group, just looking at the overall function of our HICP structure and how we can make engagement of our community ongoingly more accessible.
And then if I could just add to that, yeah, since I kind of coordinate the monthly subcommittee meetings, yeah, the intention is to have martyr times at those meetings and kind of have that dashboard, if you will, be the kind of the driver of that meeting, because again, we'll be going over the local hire numbers or targeted numbers, where the opportunities are, where the gaps are. So that'll kind of be the driver. But yeah, they'll be part of those ongoing meetings. And since, yeah, it's kind of these public works projects, again, Modern Times has been brought on by Public Works, so they're helping us, like Alicia mentioned, connect those dots and identify those gaps. So I mean, they'll be part of the ongoing conversation.
That's helpful, Isidro. And Alicia, thank you. Just wanted to get a better understanding of how that structure would continue. And maybe a shameless plug for those that are new, if you want to be part of that subcommittee, hit up Isidro.
No shame in that. We need that new blood every time. Thank you for making that plug.
All right. Well, everyone, I hope everyone's enjoyed our deep dive. We spent quite a bit of time on the workforce development and economic recovery piece. That being said, of course, there's always more to explore. So as we've described, these are some touch points that we will continue to revisit over time. And we also wanted to invite the opportunity for consideration of hosting a symposium or summit sometime this fall that might dig in even more deeply on these related topics. But with that, we have extended past our regular time today. I appreciate everyone's patience for joining us. We'll throw, I think, a quick member poll up there just so you can give us your feedback on today's meeting. And of course, we always invite suggested topics for the future meetings and or speakers that you would most like to hear from. You are welcome to always put that information and suggestions in the chat for us, and we will look at it after the meeting concludes. But with that, I think we are done for today. I want to thank all of our presenters so much for their time and effort in putting together such a fantastically rich presentation, both on tenant rights and protections, and of course on our economic development and economic recovery and workforce development. With that, if there are no final thoughts or comments, I will say goodbye to everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend ahead.